My name is Megan Moore. Megan Moore McIver. I recently got married, so I haven't gotten the chance to change that, but you will find me under Megan Moore through the Advising website. You mentioned counselor earlier. We are commonly confused with counselors within the college environment because when you're at the high school level, a counselor is an advisor. At the college level, advisors are who help you academically. Counselors are who facilitate other student services. And there's some distinguishable abilities there, but we can always talk about that in another way. So what I'm gonna explain to you guys, and if I may request something specific, we get a lot of questions about the program, academics, prerequisites, GPA. I want to specify, I am who helps you get ready to apply to the program. I'm gonna give you guys a presentation, and when you have program-specific questions, those are gonna be for Lori, okay? When it's about the program, when what happens if, when I'm to prepare you for application, okay? So when you're thinking of a question, ask yourself that first, just so we can just be mindful, especially as we have Tim filming today. So, pre-dental hygiene advising is going to assist students in understanding our coursework, your GPA, your application process to be considered for the program. We're going to complete educational planning with the required and recommended coursework. And then we also do unofficial evaluation of maybe transfer work that you might have. And if a student has a course substitution that they're wondering, I took stats somewhere else, could it possibly fill in for the stats requirement here at the program? That's a good question. We're the ones who will facilitate that question for you. Some quick things to keep in mind. This is a limited entry program. So as advisors, we're there to help you gear up for that. Lori is a resource, but as you're preparing your application, I'm the resource. My colleagues are the resource. We're the ones to help you first before, like if you have a question, come to your advisor, and I might say, that's a Lori question. And I'm gonna give you her admin and her name so that you can contact them if I cannot answer it for you, okay? 14 to 16 students are accepted once a year. I don't have to tell you that that means it's competitive, okay? You want to be the most competitive you possibly can, which means highest success rate possible. Academically, that means how are you gonna be the most successful? You will hear advice from us often. What is going to mean a mental health balance, an academic balance, and work-life, school-life balance, okay? Applications are due mid-February, which is uncommon for our other health programs. So I want you to be mindful of that when we're talking about the courses and the timeline that we're preparing to help you with, okay? I say this often with my students, it is a marathon, not a sprint. Almost always I hear, how quickly can I get it taken care of? How quickly can I get this done? That is not what I want a student to think of when they're thinking of dental hygiene. I want them to be successful as much as possible. And then it's a points-based admissions process. Has anybody looked at the point sheet? Lots of hands. Okay, it's intense, right? I don't mess around with that. I don't joke around about that. I'm like, that sucker is intense, and it's meant to be broken down in each category, specifically so you're knowing what you need to be prepared to do. So there's no reason to mince words when it comes to that. Your GPA, your 200 level sciences, and all of the things we're gonna get into matter. All of that matters, and that point sheet is the best way you can kind of get the big picture with just a quick glance. So other quick facts to keep in mind, you need a minimum 100-point score to even be considered for the program. So if you're applying with a 98-point sheet, you're unfortunately not even considered. So what I tell my students when they're coming in to be prepared, all right, I think I'm ready, I'm about to apply, I ask them to bring their calculation on their point sheet to me. I'm your second set of eyes so we can go through GPA, your 200 level sciences, and so on and so forth. By doing that yourself, not only are you feeling prepared on your own, because college is all about autonomy, but secondly, I'm the one who's double checking your work, right? I'm not gonna do it for you, but I will make sure you feel good about it. Next, we have the in-progress coursework process. You can absolutely apply if you are finishing your microbiology, say. You will not have precedent though. the students who have all of their coursework completed will be first choice before the students who are in progress. Can anybody tell me why they think that is? In progress coursework versus completion?
Because you already have an associate degree.
That's a good thought process, not quite. Grades are already in.
Because you can still fail a class.
Yeah, grades are already in. So Lori's gonna look at those applications and go, here's my student who I know has a 3.8 GPA, all of their coursework is finished. Here's my other student who's got a fantastic application. They're great. What happens if something happened? Life happened. There's gonna be precedent for the student who's completed first, but you still can apply, okay? And then students can't declare the dental hygiene degree until accepted into the program, so that's where you're seeing an academic advisor, because as financial aid will tell you, your coursework must be applicable to your degree. So if you're seeking financial aid, we gotta know, do your classes apply to the degree you're seeking? Well, I'm in the pathway to dental hygiene and I can't declare that degree. That's where I come in. You can declare different types of degrees so we can make sure your financial aid is still applicable, but we're on the path, pre-dental hygiene, okay? And then if and when you're accepted into the program, the completion of the dental hygiene coursework will take a minimum of 2 years to complete. Lori will elaborate much more on that. So basic prerequisites for admissions. Notice the note here at the top, highly recommend completion prior to applying. Minimum GPA of a 2.75. We have to state that minimum. Lori will elaborate, but I'm gonna tell you if a student walks into my office and has a 2.75 GPA and wants to go for dental hygiene, I'm gonna be really, really honest with them. You need to be much more competitive than that. That's a minimum requirement. I'm gonna be real with a student with a 3.0, okay? You want the highest amount of success possible. Now, that's not to say that a cohort who's applying might not be in the 3.3 range. Totally. I can't speak to what has happened or not happened before. People often ask, has there been, or what's the lowest there's been? We don't speak to that often because that's a one-off. It's very particular. But I'm gonna tell a student who's meeting the minimum requirement of 2.75, I want you to be more competitive than this. Let's find out how we can be strategic about that. And there's ways we can do that. And you need at minimum though a C or higher. If you come to me and you've got a C- in your anatomy and physiology 1, I'm gonna tell you to retake it, okay? I'm gonna skip general ed for a second and talk about the sciences because I just mentioned that C- in anatomy and physiology as a hypothetical. You can only, there's a 5-year rule. Let me backtrack a little bit. 5-year rule, 2 parts. You can only have 2 attempts of these 200 level sciences within 5 years. Attempts mean audit, withdrawal, or taking the class. So if a student's having a struggle, life happens, and sometimes classes are really, really hard, especially these 200 level sciences. If a student comes to me and says, I want to withdraw from 224, Bio 224, my question to my student is, can you still learn something by staying in the class? Because we know you need to repeat it for your DH application. Can you still learn something by staying in the class? Because your attempt now has been used. You have 2 tries. We don't mess around with the 200 level sciences, is my point, okay? Now, the general education, I'm sorry, I missed the second part of that rule. They have to be taken within 5 years. So 2 attempts within 5 years, and when you apply, they have to be 5 years recent. Does all of that make sense? 2-part 5-year rule. I never want people to skimp on that one. I promise you it's the worst thing in the world when I told a student who had taken Bio 223 6 years before, and she had to retake it. She was super bummed. It was hard to say. She did. She applied. God, it was great, but I was like, oh my God, you have to retake it. It was taken 6 years ago. Okay, then your general ed. You need at least your English 102. The reason we specify English 102 is some students place into English 102, or maybe they had an AP class credit. English 102 is what we're asking for specifically. Naturally, that usually means English 101 came before. Your Math 126 or higher, Stat 152 is higher, Math 127 and so on. You need Psych 101, you need a Humanities, Diversity, Fine Arts, US Nevada Constitution. These specifically do not state what you're required to take. That's where the academic advisor is saying, maybe you want to take Music 121, which is music appreciation, which might give you a freaking breather, okay? It might give you a breather when you're taking anatomy and physiology too. So this, we have some leeway. These ones, we do not. Chem 121 is gonna lead you to your Chem 220. Bio 190, lecture and lab. Lecture, lab will lead you to Bio 223 and 251, okay? Notice this is a tree. There's this hierarchy of all of these prereqs, and that is why I want you guys to see an academic advisor every semester if you're planning on applying to this program. Additional degree requirements are Com 113, that's a communications class, Sociology 101, and then your statistics class. There's some leeway with statistics. CHS 230 is a community health science statistics class. Stat 152 is a basic statistics class within the math department. So there's some leeway there. If you have transfer work, that's when you're talking to an advisor. We have a bit more wiggle room on the stats class than I recognize in other classes. And I've had many students talk to me about subs. I'm emailing Lori and she's going, let me look at the curriculum. Yeah, that will work. Same thing with comm. She'll elaborate on this more, but as future dental hygienists, you're gonna be face-to-face with patients. Communications and the ability to have bedside manner and really knowing how to communicate next to that chair, that's where that comm class comes into play. So when people are saying, but I took this English class, it needs to be something where you were required to speak eloquently in person in front of a class. There are rare exceptions, but it's really specific why she's asking for COM 113, okay? When in doubt, academic advisor. And then Nutrition 223 for human nutrition. You will also need your 8 hours of dental office observation. There's lots of questions about this that get fielded by academic advising. To be perfectly honest, I am not the person to field that question. Dental office observation goes to the program, okay? Also, that's separate. I understand it's separate from the experience that you can get in the dental field, which will boost your points. So when you're talking about the intricacies around the observation and the work experience you have, that will go directly to the program. I am not the person to distinguish whether or not that's acceptable to the application process. High school graduate or GED equivalent holder, that's a minimum requirement as well. You also need to complete the pre-admissions testing. Here's another factor where academic advising has the information to support you and help lead you in the right direction, but the intricacies around testing is very minimal as far as our office knowledge. You need to take a HESI. It's the Dental Hygiene HESI, separate from the Nursing HESI, separate from the RadTech HESI. I promise you a student has taken the wrong HESI, done well on it, and not been able to apply. Do not let that happen to you. You're taking the Dental Hygiene HESI. You'll be scored in 5 categories. My apologies, I don't have them all off the top of my head, but there's reading and vocabulary, critical thinking, grammar, biology.
Anatomy, physiology, and critical thinking. So there's 6, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Those are right there. So you need to take the HESI. The intricacies around those, we don't have study materials for you guys, but we can direct you to HESI at tmcc.edu for questions. You absolutely can ask us questions. I just want to prepare you that I don't work for testing services. I don't facilitate that test, but I want you to know you still have a resource, okay? You also need to take the dexterity test and your spatial test. So you have 3 pre-admissions tests as well as all of those prerequisites, which is why that supports this is a marathon, not a sprint. I don't tell any student what to do and what they can or cannot do. If you come to me and tell me you want to take 19 credits in 1 semester, I'm going to believe in you. But I'm also going to talk to you in a real way and say, let's look at your GPA, let's talk about your track record, and let's talk about your mental health. What is realistic and how can you make this possible? Because a limited entry program is competitive. That's why it's limited entry. Not anybody can just declare the major, okay? That's where academic advising is going to support you to make sure you feel really, really good before you submit your February application, okay? The other things that are considered for points, but they are not requirements, specifically not requirements. You can get points for an associate's degree or higher. I do have a lot of students who want to earn the associate's degree because your prerequisites are pretty intense, right? We just covered that. You are very likely to be able to earn that associate's degree as you're going through TMCC, especially if you have transfer work. Any students who might have a bachelor's degree or higher, you're gonna earn points for that. That's where I really want you to dig into that points worksheet, okay? The graduate of CODA accredited dental assisting program or CDA RDA license, I don't know what that means. I am not working in the dental field. Lori will tell you, if you don't know what that means, you probably don't have that licensure, right? So if you do, chat with her, talk about like, is that licensure current? What does this mean? You can get points for that. Students ask me all the time, how can I earn that? And I'll plainly admit, I'm ignorant of that process. I do not work in the dental field. But if you don't know what this licensure is, it's likely not applicable to you, but it's worth asking the person who's the expert, okay? Work experience within the dental field. I've had many students who started with me saying, I don't even have my math classes started yet, got a receptionist job at a dental office, pushing paperwork and working with the dentist. They were able to get some observation hours because they already worked in an office, and then they got a few more points tacked on because they'd worked in the field, right? And it's tough because unless you're a dental assistant or something else, that might be a little tricky, but it's not impossible. I've had at least 3 off the top of my head who went and sought out reception office work in a dental office so they could have that experience. Nevada residency will be a huge plus, and then a previous applicant. This is big. I promise you, it is not uncommon for a student to say, I didn't get in. It happens, okay? It happens. Happens with schools, it happens with programs. I'm not concerned about that. We go back to the drawing board. That's a puzzle for me. All right, we had a B in this class. Can you retake it and earn an A? Especially if you're not stressed out about 5 classes at one time, but rather, I am taking this class because it's the one class I know I can earn an A in. And then a re-applicant point, and you're applying again and you're feeling much better about that application. Okay, so strategy is where I feel like that's fun. And also I'm a cheerleader, that I'm in the right profession. Because I'm like, it's okay, we're okay. Come here, all right, let's do this. Let's look at what you've got and let's make sure we're strategic about having you go again. This is the one question that happens all the time. How long? How long? Prerequisites, program. We talked about the program being at minimum 2 years. The prerequisites depends on you. It depends. Do you work? Are you a parent? Do you have other obligations outside of work that are not work and parenting? It really depends. For some students, it's a 9-credit schedule. I raised my hand because that was me. I worked all through school. I am not ashamed that it took me 7 years to get my degree. I took my time. I did what I needed to do. My mental health was intact. It does not mean any different than my colleague who earned hers in 3.5 years. It depends. It's a marathon, not a sprint. The prerequisites for bio and chem courses are big. Remember, I was acknowledging biology 190 gets you into your 200 level bios. Chem 121 gets you into your Chem 220. These things are going to matter, and it's going to depend, are you a part-time or full-time student, okay? So the application deadline versus when you're gonna be finished, those things, you're gonna have 2 years minimum ahead of you for the program, so it really is going to vary on what you're prepared for with your prerequisites. If you want to build an entire educational plan, and you're that person who wants to know, in spring 2024, I wanna know what I'm taking. By all means, I'll do that with you. I recommend that my pre-dental hygiene, nursing, rad tech students, they all meet with me once a semester. Even if you're like, we planned it all out, but I'm going, have you checked the dental hygiene website? Did you notice the change that was made? Have you gone to an info night? This is something that you need to be on top of always, even if it's just a check-in. This is the basic sequencing, just so you guys can get a visual of it. Notice that your Math 126, which is pre-calculus, and your English 101, they're kind of the bread and butter that start you off. Those are gonna lead to two pathways. English and math lead you to your cellular molecular biology. That's another gateway. English and math also lead you to Stat 152 and Chem 121. But now imagine you're taking Stat 152, Chemistry 121, and Bio 190 A&L all at the same time. That's an intense workload. And if you seek financial aid, you might need a fourth class to be full-time. So I'm here to tell you, you do not have to take all of those at the same time. We can kind of play with it. I call it playing musical classes. And we can move stuff around with the intention to know we're ultimately getting you to your prerequisites for the program, okay? Because then take it to the next step. After you're done with Bio 190 and Chem 121, then you've got Chem 220, Nutrition 223, Bio 223, and Bio 251. That's microbiology, anatomy and physiology 1, part 1. You've got principles of nutrition, and then you've got organic chem. I would not encourage a student to do all of that in one semester. If a student came to me and had Rockin' 4.0, I might go, okay, I trust you. If a student came to me with a 3.0 and said, I can do this, I'm not gonna tell you what to do. I'm an advisor. I don't make decisions for you. But I am gonna ask you, can you balance this workload? Because 3 of these are 12 credits on their own. Okay, your 200 level sciences, okay? This is really a strategy around what do you have time to balance and where's your success? Because if we're looking at bios, 223, 251, and 220, these are your 5-year rule classes, 2 attempts in 5 years. If you have a 3rd attempt and Lori gets your application, she cannot accept it until the 1st attempt falls away. Think of it like a conveyor belt, okay? And that 1st attempt, the old one that's coming at 5 years, has to fall off before she can accept that application, okay? It's really hard as an advisor to tell a student, you have 3 attempts, you look great, you've got a great application, you cannot apply. You could apply and it's gonna be tossed aside because you have 3 attempts within the 5 years. So we don't mess around with that, and that's why the strategy on your academic planning, I really don't encourage students to do it on their own when we're talking about a limited entry program such as this. And then after Bio 223 is your Bio 224. That's kind of the little guy that's an outlier. To be perfectly honest, I most recommend that students split these 3. And you split those 3, and then we talk about other classes to fill in your schedule, okay? Not to say that I haven't had students take 2 at one time and kill the game. You can prove me wrong. And I'm not gonna tell someone they can't do it, but I want you to know the workload that's going to be associated with it. This is a really rough sample education plan. Notice that we do have some of those 200 levels in the same semesters. We give sample education plans so you can see, for that student who comes to me and says, I wanna do this in 4 semesters, you can. Yeah, you absolutely can. And I will never tell you what you can't do. But I want you to know what will be associated with that work, okay? I feel like I'm scaring you guys. Am I scaring you? I don't wanna scare you. Okay, for transfer students, that is where we come in as advisors. We can evaluate transfer work. You need to have it formally evaluated through admissions and records. Once it's been evaluated doesn't mean that's the end game. If you have a communications class and you say, Megan, I heard you at Dental Hygiene Info Night. You said I had to give a presentation and speech in front of class. I know it applies. I think it applies. Can we look at it? I can submit a substitution request and ask. Lori's gonna make the final call and we look at the curriculum and it makes sense. Yeah, it does not hurt to ask, especially when college means money. So ask the questions, you know who to ask in advising. Me, any of my colleagues. But we have to be the ones to unofficially evaluate it so you can get the best understanding of that. Admissions and Records officially evaluates it and says, your class at Shasta College meets this TMCC requirement, okay? And then also, again, if you have like other transfer work and maybe it's not a substitution, but you took an English class somewhere else and you think it'll apply, then we'll transfer it in. AP credit from high school students, if you took the AP test for something and you earned the appropriate score, which is a 3 or higher, yep, then we'll hopefully, I mean, it will be considered a college credit, but we don't know if it'll be applicable to the dental hygiene degree and program until we take a look at it, okay? The rule of thumb, schedule with us once a semester. My dental hygiene students come in, I say dental hygiene students, I mean pre-dental hygiene students, but the ones that are preparing, they come in once a semester like clockwork, and most of the time we end up, if we've already planned out their entire academic plan, then we're going, okay, where was this grade? Let's tack on the points. All right, let's go through all of those intricacies. And then honestly, it's most of the time feeling really validating. I am making progress. I am toward completion. I'm working hard and it's showing. Regardless, one meeting a semester so you don't feel like, ooh, what if I miss something? When in doubt, I'm gonna say, meet with your advisor. We're in close communication with Lori. I will plug my colleague, Courtney Schachter. She is honestly a mentor of mine in the office. She's worked more closely with Lori, and she and I work together to facilitate support for the nursing program, the dental hygiene program, and the RadTech program. All of our colleagues are incredible though. When you're meeting with advising, at least you know you're retaining the information, whether it's changed, whether it's the same, and you're feeling that solidification that I'm completely aware and I'm in the know. We actually give virtual appointments and in-person appointments. I will give you a little bit of a heads up when it's coming time for enrollment for any period. Summer, fall, spring, do not wait until you've got that notification for enrollment in your message box. I cannot tell you how many students are really, really bummed out and then stressed out that they can't get into advising until 2 weeks past enrollment opens. Right now, my personal schedule is booked out 2 weeks and 6 days, almost a full 3 weeks. And my regular students are really stressed out, but my other regular students are like, oh, I got a Megan schedule 2 months ago. You really wanna be prepared for that because we don't want to not be able to take care of you, but our office is only so many people strong. So when you need an appointment, when you're someone who's going for a program like this, just get in that habit. Call the office, ask to get on the schedule 3 months out. Then you know you're well prepared, you're getting enrolled early, because these classes, it's not like you can fill in another class for anatomy and physiology. You need Bio 223 to get into the next one, okay? Questions for me? Yes?
How many times can you take a prereq to like the 200 level biology classes?
To understand you, like say Bio 190 before 200 level?
Yeah, like a Math 126 or something. Does that knock against
You can take that as many times as you personally choose. Now, I will not step on financial aid's toes and tell you that it'll be paid for if you take it 5 times. But I will tell you, out of personal experience with my students, I've never had a student have a hiccup by retaking it once. And it will not be a factor when it comes to the program application. If you had 3 attempts at Math 126 to get the grade you wanted, they're gonna take the highest grade.
How does
Great
it work?
question.
If you say you got a B in Math 126 and then you got an A, does the score you got from the A, like the amount of credits you got from that, surpass the B, or is it like a average?
They will
of
take the
two?
highest grade.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's not an average of the two?
Even if, and
We take the highest.
yeah, I was gonna say, even if I had a student recently retake a class, she got a B, she knew she could kill the A, her parent died. And she was sobbing in my office. It was a very difficult situation. And I made sure with colleagues, I'm like, I don't think they're gonna, like this is the second retake, but she earned a higher grade, life happened. There was also other factors where you can actually appeal something with a life situation like that. It was completely wiped when it came down to the grade exception, but her biggest concern was, will they take the higher grade even though the lower grade was after the first grade? And they're gonna take the higher grade. Yeah, great questions, thank you. Yes?
How does the point sheet, like the 100 points that you need?
It's, if you email advising at tmcc.edu. Advisement at tmcc.edu. I'd be happy to share that with you so you can get a visual of it, or go to the dental hygiene website. But roughly, it's going to break down the sections of your general education. Did you meet those requirements? It's going to break down GPA in your 200 level sciences and your general education. There's a line for everything, every single category. There's a line for every single pre-admissions test you have. It's intense, I'm not gonna lie. It's a stacked sheet, and you're gonna be able, for students who probably are very well versed in math and science, it's very, very appealing and like really satisfying to like jot everything down. I'm like, and I'm not a math and science kiddo. I am the English and art and music. But I still am like, oh man, that's satisfying as I'm going through with my students. I'm like, that was an A, that was a B, you have a 3.6, and you can calculate every single one of your points. And that's where you're meeting with your advisor prior to your admissions. And you're actually going, okay, second set of eyes, and I'm checking every single bit so we can calculate. You've got a 109. Okay, and remember you have to have a minimum 100. Maximum is 137. But that's a really quick link that I can email you, or you can check it out. You can look at pre-admissions, points worksheet dental hygiene will be the quickest.
Aside from the core sciences, is there a time limit on any of the other classes?
There's not. Math, I will say, has a time limit of 2 years as a prerequisite. The math department, if you're trying to get into Math 127, after Math 126, they will have a time limit for math as a prereq. Not as far as the program is concerned. Okay? Yes?
When did this fall process start?
I believe it's August 21st. Off the top of my, I think it's August 21. Yeah, I should know that date off the top of my head as we're finishing spring semester. But it's always the third week of August. Yes. Other questions, guys?
But when do they start enrolling for fall?
Enrollment for fall, thank you, Tim. Enrollment for fall is starting this month. So you should see in your student center, your main My TMCC, right? Tells you your name, your schedule's right there, finances, in the bottom right-hand corner. So if you're looking at your student center, bottom right-hand corner tells you enrollment dates. Most people overlook that. It tells you when your shopping cart opens, and it tells you when you can literally enroll. And it's not the same for everyone. A student who's earned more than 60 college credits is gonna have a sooner enrollment date. Student who's a student athlete is gonna have an earlier priority enrollment date. Student who is an incoming freshman or sophomore, later enrollment date. Pay attention to that, especially as students who are interested in this program. Because if you have an earlier enrollment date and it's April 11th versus everybody else's April 17th, I want you to have the one up on the students to get into the Bio 223 that you need now, so that you're not arranging a work schedule or you're not doing something different when you had a priority enrollment date. Yeah. Solid plug, thank you for that. Anybody else? Cool. All right, guys. I should have brought business cards with me. I apologize. Yes?
Sorry, I got one more question. If a person has like an associate's and a bachelor's, do they take credits for both, or does the bachelor trump?
We take credit for the highest.
Yeah,
So it's 3 points for a bachelor's, 1 for an associate's.
And then does the type of bachelor's matter, or is it just bachelor?
it's the level.
It's the
The
level.
level of degree. Yeah, so a student who has a master's degree in psychology, while it doesn't pertain to dental hygiene. Yeah. Yeah, solid questions. Yes?
So I'm currently at UNR for neuroscience. I'm just interested in learning about this program. Would you recommend that I follow through, finish at UNR, get either a bachelor's or a master's before coming back and applying for this program?
I would love to have an appointment with you, because if you're close to your neuroscience batch, a batch of science is going to, I don't think that would be negative in any way, shape, or form. But also, depends on your ultimate goals career-wise. Depends on your ultimate educational goals. And also, we can compare that. There have been students who were part of the way through, wanted to see if it was applicable and they were competitive enough to get into the program, and whether or not they got in the program determined whether they went and continued with their summer classes and their fall classes. And even if it was a repeat applicant, remember, you get a point as a repeat applicant, and you can be more strategic. So you could be on your way to finish especially when you have one chance a year and you finish that degree and then apply. Now you've got a batch and you're in a dental hygiene program, hypothetically.
Yeah.
Okay? That would be something I want to dig into with you personally.
Okay.
Okay? Yes?
How about if you have multiple associate's degrees?
I believe it's going to be the points for having an associate's degree level
Yes.
education.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Super intelligent questions. I love this,
questions.
guys.
Yes.
Love it. And I appreciate them being very particular to academics, because Lori's going to be the one who drills into the program. Anything else before I wrap up? Okay, cool. So if you haven't caught the one theme, I'm going to reiterate, you need to see your advisor once a semester. Okay, even if you're like, hey, Megan, just want to check in. I know we don't have anything else to plan, but here's how my bio class is going. And I might give you some pointers if you're having a rough time, or just ask you how you're doing. And honestly, sometimes it's just a mental health check. Other times it's very particular into the program and some changes that might have been made. But that's peace of mind, in my opinion, especially when you've got a bit of a process before you're applying to something so specific as this. Advisement at tmcc.edu is the advising email. You'll get every single one of my colleagues and myself. And then my name is Megan Moore. My email is very, very simple. It's memore, MEMOORE. And you guys can find me on Academic Advising's website. You are welcome to request to meet with me or anybody I work with. Honestly, I learn from them more than anybody else every day. So let us know when you need help, and when in doubt, schedule early. I never want someone to come in a panic when they might need to drop a class and it might affect their financial aid and they can't get in to see us. Okay, because I can't help if my schedule is booked. I'm actually really happy when it's booked because that means my students need me.